Today we're on to welcome Kelly Tuttle to the show today, and I'm very excited about this. She's written an amazing book on concussions, and she has an amazing story herself. So I feel like a lot of people can get benefit out of this because one way or another, even if we don't have some type of serious brain injury, it's likely that we've had some type of impact on our nervous system to the brain at some point in our lives, right? So Kelly has a lot of information to help people with this, and she's done a great job on her book. I'm very excited to have her on the show today. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me, Anthony.
Definitely. I'm very interested to hear your story and how you got into the place of service you are with concussions and everything that you're doing to help people today.
Sure. So my story starts with a thunderous clap of metal and shattering of glass. I was driving down a rural road after work, and a car pulled out in front of me suddenly, and I was unable to stop from colliding into the car. It was a pretty bad wreck. Traffic was stopped. People were coming out of their houses. But I thought, I'll just shake it off and continue to go on with life. And I went to work the next day, and my colleagues noticed that I wasn't acting right or speaking correctly. So they impressed upon me to see my general practitioner the next day, which I did. And I was diagnosed with a concussion and taken off work for 2 weeks and left with a feeling that after resting for 2 weeks, I could get back into life again. And so I did. I returned to work and my life. And shortly after, about 2 to 3 months after, I fell asleep at the wheel. And
Wow.
I woke up just in time to keep my car from crashing into a tree. And this is how my brain was thinking at the time. I thought, I'll just take a nap in between work and home, not tell my doctor, which I don't recommend to your listeners, and pushed through life again. Then afterwards, I had lunch with a colleague. At the time, I was a cardiology nurse practitioner, and my colleague was a neurology nurse practitioner. And she was curious about my recovery, and she asked, and I said, well, I have these symptoms. Oh, and I fell asleep at the wheel, but it's okay because I'm just taking a nap in between work and home, right? And she's like, no, that's not good. You need to, she said, you need to see a physical medicine rehab doctor, PMR doctor. They are also known as physiatrists, and they help people with brain and spinal injuries. And you need to get a brain scan. So prior to this point, I hadn't seen a specialist or had any brain scans. So with a lot of navigating through healthcare, because it's difficult to get referrals, I finally got my appointment. The PMR doctor recognized there was a problem and took me off work for 3 months. After that, I had intensive therapy, and that really got me onto the right road of recovery and to understand my brain injury. And then there was 2 weeks, after I was off for 3 months, it was 2 weeks before going back to work. I was like freaking out. I was like, what does my brain need to be supported while I'm at work so I could be a safe and proficient and efficient employee? And, I just couldn't find the answers I wanted from the books I had, the websites I had reviewed, my therapist's paperwork. And so when I decided to write my book, I didn't want anybody to go through what I went through, trying to get back to work after a brain injury. I wanted everything they needed to do, or at least the things that worked for me, to be available in one space, in one book. And so that's why when I wrote my book, it was super easy to read, quick to the point, strategies and tools that can be utilized right away by the reader. And for them to know that there is hope that they will get better, because it is a dark and lonely journey recovering from a brain injury. And it's nice to know that there are other people out there like yourself, and that there is hope of getting better. And my book is on Audible because after my concussion, I used to be an avid reader. I'd read for hours, but after my concussion, I could only read for 5 or 10 minutes. And then I would get headaches and dizziness, and I couldn't remember what I read. but I was able to listen to audiobooks and retain the information. So it's on Audible, and that was why it was really important for it to be accessible that way.
Yeah, definitely. Audiobooks are great. I mean, that's what I do as well, in terms of like accessibility as well. Like while you're in the car, you're working out, so those are great as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you're time pinched, like a lot of us are.
Definitely. Wow, that's an amazing story. I really appreciate you sharing that. It sounds like when you had that traumatic brain injury, you were experiencing some symptoms, but you didn't necessarily have a lot of treatment that was effective at the time, and you just kind of went along, and but then you kind of met some people and say, hey, maybe you need to take care of this. Do I have that correct?
Yes, definitely. I think that that's one of the things people don't realize after someone has a concussion or a brain injury is that they lack self-awareness, that they're not aware of their limitations, they're really not aware of their behavior and the way they're acting. And I definitely lacked that awareness at least 3 months after the concussion. And there was a time where I was putting away clothes into my closet and I was thinking about conversations I'd had with some friends. And I got this really weird sensation. And I'm like, what is that? And so I sat down and I analyzed it. I'm like, what is that weird? I have this weird sinking sensation on my chest as I'm thinking about it. And then what I realized what it was regret. Was regretting the things that I said, and I had, and it was developing the ability to connect actions to consequences, and that was actually broken before this time. And when I sat down and started feeling regret, I was like, oh my gosh, I lost that feeling. I lost the connection to consequences from my actions. I lost my ability to regret or feel bad. And it came back. And it was an amazing, I was sad because I was like bummed out. Like I had some apologies to be made. But I was excited because I'm like, if that part of my brain can heal, that means other parts of my brain can heal. So yeah, so self-awareness is can definitely disappear after a concussion or a brain injury, and it's really important for caregivers and loved ones to realize that, and providers, doctors, that these people need to be closely monitored after their head injury to make sure that they're safe and don't do things that may have a huge impact on their lives or their livelihood.
Absolutely. That's a great insight to have. Like, if this part of the brain can heal, maybe others can as well. Like, just having this sense of hope and like things can get better.
Yeah, yeah. It was an exciting time, but also I was like, oh man, I need to schedule some difficult conversations.
Man, yeah, it's I feel like people would be understanding though as well because you had this thing going on in your life, so it kind of goes both ways. Do I have that right?
Yes, yeah. And that's the other thing is that after a brain injury, you can have loss of friends because they don't understand, they don't get it because it's an invisible disability. You look fine, but you aren't fine, and you're different, you've changed, and some people aren't going to be okay with that, and they're going to leave your life, and that's a serious bummer. But the friends that do stay in your life, that they're treasured friends, and they're going to be there when you need bail money at 2 a.m. in the morning.
That's a good point. Like, because a lot of things like happen in our lives and maybe TBI or something else, and we kind of go through these hard times, and we really find out who our friends are. I mean, that's just a good life insight there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you also said that you wrote this book so you can have other people kind of know the strategies and tools for healing, right? Because if someone else has gone through it and kind of made it to the other side in a sense, we kind of look to them for inspiration. So I appreciate you writing that book and just kind of putting strategy out there for people. It's really important as well. So thank you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just didn't want people to go through, what I went through. And then, it's a good the book is a good balancing platform because once you start putting together a bag of tricks to support your healing brain while you're at work, then that just uh, you'll be able to put additional learnings and ideas on top of that foundation and create the best tools and strategies for yourself.
Absolutely. So if people have a concussion or maybe they're not sure, what should they do? And also, what symptoms may they be experiencing up front when it happens?
Right. So once you've seen one traumatic brain injury as a provider, you've seen one traumatic brain injury. They are all unique. The symptoms are all unique, and the recovery is unique. Um, so it's really important to discover your symptoms. Like, what are your symptoms? And I always recommend for my patients and my readers and followers is to journal. Journal every day. Journal in the morning, journal in the evening. This helps you get to know your brain injury symptoms, what makes them worse, and what helps them feel better. And once you know your symptoms, then you can figure out which specialist you need to see for those symptoms. For example, if you're having difficulty with vision, um, and let's say when you watch a action movie on your TV or when you scroll up and down on your phone, you get a headache or you get dizzy or nauseous. Letting your doctor know those symptoms and specifically not just saying, oh, I feel dizzy, because dizzy is really a non-specific symptom. It can be caused by so many things. But if you can provide to your provider details about the dizziness, that scrolling up and down on the phone makes it worse, that you get dizzy while sitting in a car, then they're going to know that you're having difficulty, your eyes are having difficulty processing your vision and the movement of objects in your world. And so a referral to a neurotherapist would be helpful for you.
Awesome. So it sounds like having a personalized approach is the best approach. Do I have that right?
Exactly. And you're not going to just see one provider that's going to help you with all your symptoms. You're probably going to have a team of specialists that will help you. So, for instance, if you're having difficulty with memory, word finding, speech, planning, motivation, those type of things, a speech therapist can help you with those symptoms. Uh, if you are having difficulty with sleep or impulsive behavior, then you should see your regular general practitioner first, and then maybe if they're not able to help you with kind of the frontline treatments, then they can refer you to a psychiatrist. They are very well versed in treating impulsive behavior and really tricky sleep disorders.
Very interesting. Yeah. Out of curiosity, what are the tools that have really helped you along your journey? Like, what are some big things that you've done? Also, are you still kind of taking on these habits as a day to day lifestyle practice?
Yes, so definitely journaling is a tool that I have used in the beginning and I use even now. And because journaling, you encourage neuroplasticity, the rewiring of the brain, of connections around connections that have been severed with the movement of your hand to the thoughts in your mind. So I definitely encourage journaling by hand if you can. If you can't, then you can use other apps and so forth. where you could do like a verbal journal. Um, but journaling, because it also encourages mindfulness, kind of getting out of your head and um, getting your thoughts that might be ruminating in your head out on paper, so you can see if they're really thoughts that are valid, or are they something you should share with a friend, or maybe take to a talk therapist like a counselor, or is it issues with a family? Maybe you should see a family counselor. So that's one of the great things about journaling. And it's just kind of a safe place to kind of vent your anger and frustrations without having to share it with your friends or family if it's something you don't want to share. Like, say you got angry at your partner, you can tell your journal all about it, but you don't have to share it with your partner. But it gets it out of your mind. And that's the thing, is like after a, a brain injury or an impact to the head, you kind of get trapped in your head. And you don't want to be trapped in your head, because that's where Negative Nancy lives and Bob Bully. You want to get away from those two. They're not nice. So getting it onto your journal, or practicing mindfulness, doing crafts, or cleaning out a junk drawer, or being out in nature and paying attention to all five senses, like the sounds you're hearing, the things you're seeing, the smells, those kinds of things, the feel of the ground on your feet. All those things help you get away from those ruminating voices, and telling them to shut up and to think of, more realistic thoughts. And you can break that cycle and protect your mental health.
Absolutely. Journaling is awesome. I do it myself. I do a variety of journals. Like, I think it's good to kind of adopt the practice to what you need as well. It may be seasonal. And as you mentioned, like kind of evaluating your thoughts and things that may happen throughout the day. I think that's a great practice as well.
Yeah, and then it also gives you a vehicle to, like, say I was at work and I snapped at a coworker and I really felt bad. So it gives me a vehicle to go back to that moment and analyze it and figure out what led up to me being grumpy with my coworker, right? And I can think, well, let's see, they broke my focus away from my work, which is like the worst thing you can do to a brain injury survivor. We don't multitask very well, and it's very common to have difficulty with focus and attention. And maybe I wasn't using my noise canceling headphones, so this noise in the office was getting to me. Maybe I hadn't taken a break. Um, Maybe I just didn't know what to say on the spot. So I would make a list of ways to prevent that from happening again that evening. So I would put, remember to use my noise canceling headphones. Um, Remember to set my clock for alarms to remind me to take breaks. And when somebody comes up with to me with this issue, this is what I'm going to say, and then I practice that, what I'm going to say, and keep that near me while I'm at work. So if it comes up again, I can maintain my professional demeanor and maintain my credibility.
Got it. That's awesome. What are some other tools that you used? Because in the book, you talked about a lot of cool things. I really, I'll just let you start there, and I'll kind of I'll go from there in terms of the questions.
Yeah, so I do have my five pillars of recovery to support your recovery. And one of them is sleep. Sleep's really important. You need to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. The brain does a lot of important processes while you're sleeping, and that 7 to 9 hours allow those processes to occur. Um, After a brain injury, a lot of survivors will need more sleep, typically 10 hours plus a night. Um, and they may also struggle with what's called as neurofatigue, which is different from regular fatigue because it's not eliminated with rest or sleep. So when a brain injury survivor wakes up and if they have neurofatigue, what happens is they usually wake up tired. It's kind of like having an old cellular battery. It where it will only charge up to 50% no matter how long you have it plugged in, and it wears down really fast. So our energy, it takes more brain energy to do tasks because pathways and cells have been damaged and died. And so our brain is having to take, instead of the highway to get from A to B, it's taking side streets. And when you take side streets, it takes longer time to get to your destination, more fuel, until those get built up and you get quicker with your thinking process as time passes. Um, so sleep is very, very important after a brain injury. And then exercise. Exercise has shown to encourage neuroplasticity and brain healing. And if you only have to just walk, and preferably walk outside, because research supports that being outside in nature is very healing to the brain. And you don't have to go out to a national park to get this effect. You could just walk down a sidewalk that has trees and bushes. It's the same thing, or your local park. Um, and then the mindfulness, which we talked about before, is another part of the pillar of recovery because it gets you out of your brain and it allows you to kind of get to know your brain. And nutrition is really important. I do recommend eating more closer to the ground rather by the closer to the factory. So instead of having orange juice, I recommend just eating the orange. Instead of having olive oil, I recommend having the olives on your salad. So the really close to the ground, nutritionally dense foods are very important. And then limiting your intake of processed foods because they have chemicals your body doesn't really need, and your brain's trying to clear out the debris from your injury, and there's inflammation. So you don't want to add anything into your body that's going to encourage inflammation. And then limiting dairy and meat because they're high in saturated fat, which increases your cholesterol and can lead to strokes. And that's the last thing you want on top of your brain injury. So try to limit those categories and eat more vegetables and fruit, just like your parents told you when you were a kid.
Definitely.
And then the last one is financial wellness. Financial wellness, huge. After a brain injury, there could be reduction in income, loss of income. You might have to be off to the point where you can't maintain your employment. So this is the time to really cut back on spending if you can. Cancel any subscriptions or memberships to gyms until you figure out how well your brain's going to heal, and if you're going to be able to return to work. Um, and there's also other expenses that you may not realize that may tax your bank account, such as out-of-pocket costs for your therapies. For example, I needed a lot of acupuncture therapy and massage therapy for my whiplash, and I had to pay out of pocket for that. That wasn't covered by my insurance. So that was pretty expensive. There was a certain specialist I wanted to see, like a neurobehavioralist and optometrist, and I had to pay out of pocket for those services too. So there may be some out of pocket costs that you're not expecting. And the other thing too is it may be difficult for the brain injury survivor to be able to pay bills because they're going to struggle maybe with math, organization, motivation. For instance, I could not get myself motivated to pay my bills. So what I did was I put them inside a paper bag and hid them away, which is really bad. But that was my coping mechanism. And my speech therapist helped me get through that, by showing me how to take big tasks and break them down into small tasks so I could get above and beyond the overwhelm, which was affecting my motivation and initiation. So the financial issues huge, and then there can be also, I had this and I had a patient with it, which was impulsive spending. So spending more money than we were bringing in. And what I found worked for me and it worked for my patient was removing our credit cards off of easy to pay apps such as PayPal or off Amazon. So you couldn't just hit the buy now button. You had to actually get up and go get the credit card. And that kind of made you think, should I buy this? Do I really need it? Just provided a little bit of a stopgap. And so, yeah, those can really get you into a lot of trouble. So any loved ones or care providers want to stay on top of that and help if possible until the person's brain heals. And then there are financial planners that you can consider consulting with. A financial planner will help you if you need to retire early, so to plan for an early retirement or to help you plan for reduced income, make decisions of whether to maybe downsize your home, that kind of thing. And then if you're struggling with your budget and money management, there are financial coaches, money coaches that you can find that will help you with that.
Very good. Yeah, I love how you put those pillars together because it kind of makes it easy for people to understand, right? Because there's a lot of information out there. Having it organized in such a way as you did can be very valuable for people. So thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. I don't
For
want
sure.
people to make the mistakes I made.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, out of curiosity, are you familiar with hyperbaric oxygen therapy at all?
I've heard about it, but I haven't really looked into it. Have you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've done it myself. I mean, there's a lot of interesting research in terms of the brain for that and stem cells and all that because it essentially gets oxygen, the number one nutrient, into all the small places and everywhere it needs to go. It pressurizes it, right? So it's kind of like you're in this kind of mimics like being underwater for a long period of time in terms of the pressure. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting research on that. I mean, it's helped me a lot in terms of like overall wellness. So I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What are some common mistakes you see people have when they set out to heal? They're just not doing like any strategies? They're just kind of like the sit and wait type of thing. Like, what do you see personally?
Wow, uh, that's a big question too. So that there is a myth that you should rest, and that we're finding out that's the wrong thing to do. Um, in fact, most of the time, they recommend resuming gentle exercises, walking within 48 to 72 hours, not this go lay down in a dark room until you feel better. That's not, we found that actually prolongs and worsens brain injury symptoms. So really just kind of balancing, um, pushing yourself. Say you have light sensitivity. Every time bright lights or you're exposed to a lot of lights, you start developing a headache. So you want to hide in a dark room. Well, what you want to do is maybe allow that maybe for the first 48 hours, but then afterwards, you want to start increasing your exposure to light and pushing it to the point of encouraging your brain to grow, but not overdoing it to the point where you have a terrible headache and you need to sleep the next 2 to 3 days. So finding that balance of just kind of emerging into the world and slowly encouraging your brain to grow and get stronger. Um, the let's see, part I forgot the other part. What was the question again?
Yeah, so it was essentially what are some common mistakes that people may be making? And then I mentioned like a lot of times you just
Oh
hear
yeah.
just like the sit and wait type of thing. It's I don't know if that's the best approach.
One of the other things that I have seen hold back other brain injury survivors from healing is not being able to move forward. So they are holding on to who they used to be before the accident, what they could do before the accident or the brain injury, and not moving forward and beyond that, staying in the past. And I was lucky. I sat down one day and decided, I've had these symptoms for a while. It doesn't seem like they're going to go away anytime soon, and they're kind of limiting my life. So what I want to know is, what have I lost and what have I gained? So I grabbed a piece of paper, drew a line down the middle, and I wrote all my passions and goals and things I enjoyed before my car accident that I wasn't able to do anymore. And on the other side, I wrote all the things that I had gained from from my brain injury. And what I saw was before my brain injury, I was very on the go, goal oriented, busy, 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 traveling, volunteering, all that stuff, tons of energy. And then what I gained from it was the ability to sit and appreciate the moment, a more slower pace in life, a more simple life, a more intentional life. So my decisions and movements were more intentional rather than just going past the rose and not stopping to smell the rose kind of thing. And when I compared the two, I really liked the person I was becoming. And that's how I embraced my new self and my new brain.
Very interesting. So it sounds like seeing the benefits as well, and in terms of the lessons, just like we go through anything in life, it's important to feel whatever we're feeling, but also learn the lessons so we can get to the other side and do what you've done, which is helping people work through those situations and not go through exactly what you went through. So and being a light for other people, right? Because we can experience these things and we can just kind of have them as they are, or we can grow from it. And once we do that and like be a light for others, it just makes it that much easier to kind of navigate the world and become a better version of ourselves in a sense, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And, and it's not, it does, you don't want to do or thinking like it's either good or bad. Things can be both good and bad. Like uh, losing a loved one. It's like you can say you lost a loved one to dementia and they were very, very ill at the end. You can be sad that that person is gone and has died, but you can also be happy that they're in a probably a better place than they were when they were alive. Um, so I, after my brain injury, could be very sad and frustrated that I don't have the energy that I used to have um, before my accident, but I could be also happy because it has had me slow down and be more thoughtful. And being more thoughtful, becoming, growing my emotional intelligence and expanding my ability to be empathetic and conscientious of those around me in the world. So it
Absolutely,
doesn't
yeah.
have to be, the or kind of thinking. It could be both and. So you could be really sad what happened to you, but you can also see the good that came out of it. And because I don't want to people to think that, well, you just had a brain injury, you just need to get over it and let that go. That's not true. What you do is you take that with you and keep it with you because it's a part of you, but you want to move forward and grow beyond that.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, Like I had a concussion a long time ago playing football, and just being able to heal from that in a sense and get to the other side of it, I feel like there's always lessons and there's things that you can grow from. So just understanding once you do these things and you get to the other side, you actually develop your character in a sense that you perhaps wouldn't have if these things didn't occur.
Right, right. I guess what the saying says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, you had mentioned a particular type of doctor in the beginning. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, which one?
The one that kind of specializes in the nervous system and kind of the TBI.
Yeah, so those are physiatrists, and I think a lot of people, and I think it's reasonable to think that after a brain injury, you should see a neurologist. And neurologists actually take care of issues of the brain that are a disease of the brain. So they help with Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, and sometimes they specialize in chronic headache management. But a physiatrist helps with brain injuries. And there's actually um, just recently developed a it's called I think it's called traumatic brain injury medicine. Within the specialty of physiatrists, where the physiatrist goes to additional training and education to take care of brain injuries, which is really exciting if you could find one of those specialists after your brain injury. Um, but most physiatrists are well versed in brain injuries. And so the brain injury can be, like an impact, like I said, or from a blast. It could be from an acceleration, deceleration accident that can happen from being in a car crash or falling. You could have a brain injury from uh, oxygen deprivation, so a near drowning or a cardiac arrest. You can have it by a stroke, stroke either being a clot forming in a blood vessel or a blood vessel in the brain rupturing, a hemorrhagic stroke. I'm having difficulty with my words today. And so, yeah, all those, you could also have brain damage from infections, from encephalopathy, from meningitis, or a viral illness such as COVID-19. And let's see, I think I got them. Oh, and poisoning. So you can also have brain damage from monoxide poisoning or from lead poisoning. All those things, you should, if you have those issues, you should be under the care of a physical medicine rehab doctor, or at least get a consultation. And they'll get you sent off to the right specialist to help you with your symptoms.
Got it. That makes sense for sure. So I'm curious, is there a difference between like getting concussion and just getting like hit in the head a certain way? Is there a difference to know, for example?
Oh, yeah, that's a really great question. So, um, you can have a concussion and have a normal head CT or MRI. Right now, the only way we diagnose concussion is based on symptoms. So, the symptoms that you have. And that's why it's really important for you to become aware of what you're struggling with after your concussion, to let your doctor know. And then, if the symptoms persist over time, too, um, can really help in the diagnosis of the concussion. Concussion and traumatic brain injury are interused as terminology for the brain injury.
Got it. Yeah, because like even if you're in like some type of combat sport, you might get hit in the head pretty often. but it may not necessarily be like that TBI. But I feel like those things definitely can add up.
They definitely do, and research is definitely showing that. That, and I have seen it personally, is when I've had a patient who's had say, an injury in high school and playing football, and then they hit their head later on. Maybe they fell down and in their garage and hit their head. Um, it will bring back those old symptoms, and then it is even more difficult for them to recover as compared to their first impact. So if you have a second impact, then down the road, you may find it that your recovery is slower. And if you keep having impact after impact, or a brain assault, such as like a stroke, then the disabilities, the deficits that are caused by those assaults on the brain can accumulate, and they can become permanent.
Man, yeah. I feel like it's why it's important to stay on top of your practices and habits because, like, if you're going to engage in those type of things, I think you really gotta do things to have a healthy brain, like all those things that you mentioned before, because I feel like that'll help mitigate it as well, and also kind of repair things along the way.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And yeah, so a lot of people worry about development of dementia, after they have head injury, because they'll hear that. I read that early in my recovery. I was like, really? Great. Another thing to worry about. But what you can do there are things you can do to help prevent dementia. And a lot of them are the things I talked about in the 5 pillars of recovery. So, getting to sleep, eating healthy, exercising, practicing mindfulness, but also always learning, always pushing your brain. The brain loves to be in a rut and just do routines. It loves it. But if it stays in its rut, it will not grow. You won't have that neuroplasticity that you want to encourage. So you always want to be learning, and learning can be as complicated as learning a new language or traveling to another country, or as easy as trying a new recipe or going to a new restaurant. It's always just kind of pushing yourself out of your routine. And then the other thing is being social. And being social can be as complicated as volunteering in your community, or it can be just as simple as texting friends and writing emails or making a phone call. So being social and engaging with others also supports brain health.
Absolutely, those are great points. Like having that sense of routine, and like you said, but then also like being adaptable. That's really important, because like all these tools, like your genes kind of expected of you, whether you have a traumatic brain injury or not, like just to be healthy and kind of be a vibrant human being, right? And especially when you go under these things, it can be so healing. And also, like you kind of mentioned throughout, there's certain like brain chemicals like BDNF and like neuroplasticity. These things kind of all come together in a synergy to have a healthy brain. So, a lot of strategies to keep in mind.
Right. And a lot of my patients would complain, I wish I could just go to one person to get all the care I need for my brain. And I would tell them that the brain's really complicated, and there are multiple specialists for the brain. There are multiple ways to support the health and the thriving of your brain. And they're all pieces of the puzzle that make up the wellness of your brain. So yeah, it's not going to be from one source or one thing. It's going to be a multifaceted effort.
Definitely. I like to talk about like as being a health coach, it's important to understand that you are your first client in a sense. And what I mean by that is like you have all these tools and experts and things like that, but ultimately like you have to listen to your inner guidance in a sense, right? And kind of adapt it to you, which is it's an important principle because we can get confused by all the information in a sense, but knowing how to filter it through our own experience is so key because that's what really leads to healing is kind of personalizing it to whatever you need.
Exactly.
Definitely. So in terms of resilience, like, because we've talked about this a little bit, you've cultivated a lot of resilience in your life due to this. As a general principle, like, what do you recommend to help cultivate resilience in our own lives to kind of bounce back from adversity in a sense?
Well, one of the things I like to say is there's a Japanese proverb that says, the warrior falls down 7 times and stands up eight. And when I initially thought about that proverb, I thought that, the warrior standing up alone based on their self-discipline and their will. But what I've learned from my recovery is that I I didn't do it alone, and it makes me think of that each time that warrior stood up, were there other comrades helping them, you know, to stand back up again. So always, what I would recommend in maintaining your resilience is to find your tribe and to make sure you have a supportive team around you. Support family and friends. Consider going to a support group. And when you do go to look for a support group, whether it's in person or virtual, make sure that the brain injury survivor support group is the type of brain injury you have. So there's moderate to severe, and then there's mild brain injury survivors. So make sure if you are a mild brain injury survivor that you're in that support group. And most support groups also have a caregiver component too, support group for the caregiver, and they're usually held at the same time. So definitely check that out. And you can go to braininjuryamerica.org, BIA.org, and find a local support group in your area from their website. It's a really helpful website.
Absolutely. Power of persistence and, kind of having people help you in a sense, being connected to people that really have your best interest and, can lift you up. That's so invaluable as well, just because we can be strong by ourselves, but, having that support group, as you mentioned, that's really key in a lot of areas. That accountability too, like to kind of follow through on these practices that we're doing.
Right. And they could be your mirror too. Like they can let you know if your behavior is appropriate or not, or if your thinking process is okay, or you're just being paranoid. They can help you build up your confidence in your own thinking and processing of the world around you. I always tell my patient, take advantage of that healthy brain next to you.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, like being the model for other people, right? So we can help people through that experience as well. And you had mentioned something about, when we have this accountability in our lives and it helps us kind of take on these practices and, you know, having a sense of direction as well, right? Because knowing our why, like why are we healing? Like what's our goal at the end? Of course, like we want to be healthy, but like, having that North Star in a way that we can kind of benefit other people, I feel like that's important because things are going to be hard sometimes. And having that thinking that can pull us through every single time and keep us on track, that's really key, I find, in all aspects of life, really.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that the journaling really helps you with that, suss that out, like what is really important for you moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, being purpose oriented, right? So, kind of going through certain challenges and understanding that it's important to have the awareness of what they can do for you as well, because it kind of trains your mind to look for the lesson, right? Like everything can be a blessing if we choose to it. And, just because I find a lot of people, we just kind of get caught up in the struggle and we don't really see a way forward. But if we can train our minds through, even if the small things, like small things may happen in our life, right? if we can kind of adapt our mind to that, then it's gonna be a lot easier for the bigger things too.
Right, and that's not always easy, and it definitely is a practice that you need to do every day. I think that it's very comfortable to think that things will happen in a certain order in life. But life isn't like that. It's very spontaneous. You can't control the things outside of you, but you can control how you respond to it. And so it's real important that you look for resources to help you develop those resilient tools that you need. And that those can be found through friends, they can be found through therapists, and through books and podcasts and support groups.
100%. All right, Kelly, I really enjoyed this interview. I appreciate you so much for sharing your story with us. I feel like a lot of people can get value out of that because, hearing other people's stories can be healing in a sense. Say, if they did it, I can do it. And even if it's not in this avenue of life, we can kind of relate to it in whatever challenge we're going through. So thank you so much for putting your book together and all the information that you have. Is there anything you'd like to add for people today?
Yeah, so just to let them know that my book is titled After the Crash: How to Keep Your Job, Stay in School, and Live Life After a Brain Injury. And if you want to see what I'm up to and what I have to offer, go to kellytuttle.org, and you can find a lot of information about me and what I'm up to there.
Definitely appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing all your insights with us. It's been really awesome. And I know people are going to get value out of this. So thank you again.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.